Hey everybody, it's Grandmaster Ben Feingold here with Karen and Spencer. We're doing a recap of round 2. This is the game Richárd Rapport versus Alireza Firouzja. Very long game. Let's look into it. It lasted over 5 hours and 40 minutes. We have a Sicilian, and he took with the queen. What is he, me? Queen takes very uncommon at the top level. Speaking of uncommon, in this position, black always plays bishop to d7, and he played a6. Pretty uncommon, but fine. And what's funny is Rapport got the kind of position with white that he had black yesterday against Duda. And not only did he get the same kind of position, played the same move, c5. So very reminiscent of yesterday's game between Rapport having black against Duda. So white's a little bit better here. They traded and went to an ending where white's a tiny bit better because the pawns aren't very good, but black has the two bishops. And black's bishop isn't on g7 trapped like Rapport's was yesterday. This bishop's pretty good on d6. Okay, so the game was about equal. Nothing serious happened. They just developed their pieces. Everything looked fine. White's a tiny bit better. Probably should be a draw. And in this position, knight takes, pawn takes, g3. White has a tiny advantage. The a2 pawn is hanging. So he attacks the b pawn. They trade everything. They get to pretty drawn position. Pretty drawn. Nobody really has an advantage here. And then knight d4 check sort of loses patience. And here Alireza was getting in some time trouble. There's no reason for black to do anything. White doesn't have any threats. Black's pieces are all fine. Black's doing great. A good move would be like h5, giving the king some lift and getting some space on the king side, stopping white's pawns from moving forward. And the engine just says it's all zeros. But Firouzja wanted to force the issue because he was getting low on time and trade some pieces. In this position, I thought king d3 was good, but the players saw more than I did. Rook a1, rook takes, rook d1 check, rook h1. And even though we can double on the 7th, this pawn is just too strong. White's going to have to give a perpetual because this pawn's going to queen. The engine wants to play king d3 here, and then obviously we have a repetition. Otherwise, d3 and white's going to have to force a draw because black's going to get a queen. So instead of king d3, he played the super accurate king d2. And once again, black just has to chill. Black can play h6, getting lift on the king side. The game should be a draw. White's better now because, black's king is on g8, white's rook is on the 7th. But instead he blundered with rook a1, which just loses the game. Rook takes c6, rook h1, doubles on the 7th, check here. And I'm sure he saw this when he played rook a1. And he played g6, and this is just a losing position for black. The king is no good, doubled rooks on the 7th, the d pawn is blocked. And he missed a pretty simple win, I think, in this position. He blundered with king e4. Should have played rook g7 check, king goes to h8, and then we play rook d7, and if you take, I just take this. The h pawn is attacked, the rook is attacked. We trade, and if you put this on your engine, it says like plus a million. Because look at the black king. I have two passed pawns that are both pretty quick. Your passed pawns aren't so quick. And the engine basically just resigns here for black because this e pawn is too strong. My king is better than yours. My pawns are further advanced. And my rook is better. So this would have been a relatively easy win for white. But instead of rook g7 and rook d7, he played king e4, which may also win. That's still to be determined. The engine thinks white's winning, but when you analyze with the engine, it just gives long, drawn-out variations that don't do very much. So I'm not sure this is a win. Your engine's going to tell you it's a win, but if you play the engine moves, it's just a lot of random moves that don't do anything. So I don't know. Anyway, Rapport thought forever and ever and ever and ever, now that they made the time control, this is move 41 for black, rook e3, and he couldn't find anything. He just kept randomly checking, not doing very much. And now it's definitely a draw until later in the game. Rook e2 is an excellent move, threatening to win, threatening this, threatening this. And in this position, according to the engines, black blundered with rook e7. Now I believe the engine. The engine says king f5 wins. Of course, the rooks are tied down to this pawn. We can't move the rooks anywhere because black takes the pawn, which is what eventually happened. If you play king f5, now my rook can move away because I'm defending my pawn. d3, rook g1, this is the engine line. My pawn's defended now. Let's play d2 because that makes sense. Rook h1 check. You can't play rook h7. I mean, it's legal, but you just lose right away. Check, king g8, rook g1 check, and mate. So you have to play king g8, forced. Rook h6 threatening mate. Rook h8 check, rook h7 mate. And there's nothing black can do. He can check a couple times, but this is just a win. So white's winning in this position. I agree with the engine, which I almost always do. But instead he played b4 instead of the winning king f5. So there was like a double blunder here. Rook e7. Players have been playing for 5.5 hours. So, you know, truth hurts. b4. Finally, black got on the drawing track with d3. This pawn's too good. And now the game is just a draw. They went into the rook and pawn ending. Rook and pawn versus rook. And it's just a dead draw. The engine says every move draws. To show you how drawn this position is, we were looking with a table base. King g7, the worst move I could find, also draws, which is hard to believe. And the only moves that lose are the 4 moves that hang the rook. Every other move is a draw. So a pretty easy draw. And here they agreed to a draw. White can't do anything. If white trades rooks, this is a very easy king and pawn ending draw. No reason to play that out. So after king e6, the players agreed to a draw. A very long game, about 5 hours and 45 minutes. And Firouzja very lucky to escape with a draw. But the good player is always lucky. They make their own luck by playing such good defense. This is Grandmaster Ben Feingold. Thanks for watching the recap of round 2, the game Rapport versus Firouzja. Keep looking for more recaps here on our YouTube channel. And watch live. We have live coverage of the event. Twitch.tv/GM Benjamin Feingold. Bye, everyone.